When justice turns racist, true stories that will shock you. There are many different forms of abuse, and unfortunately, racism is one of them. It can come in many different forms, from the micro to the macro, from being ignored for a higher position at work to being denied justice simply because of your skin color. Let's take a look at some of the most shocking examples of racism in our society today. Number 10. Kalief Browder, wrongfully accused. In 2013, an 18-year-old African-American young man was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack during a robbery. The police never recovered the stolen backpack or any evidence linking Bradley to the crime. However, prosecutors still decided to charge him with robbery, and he was sent to Rikers Island. Here he spent 3 years in pretrial detention, 2 of which were spent in solitary confinement. During this time, Bradley maintained his innocence, and his lawyers filed numerous motions arguing that there was no evidence to support the charges against him. Despite this, Bradley was never brought to trial and was only offered a plea deal for a lesser charge after spending 3 years in jail. When he was finally released, he was required to register as a sex offender. Unable to cope with the trauma of his experience, Bradley took his own life. This case highlights the worst aspects of the justice system, including racial bias, wrongful convictions, and the over-policing of Black Americans. Bradley's story is a tragic example of how the justice system can fail those it is supposed to protect. Number 9. Sandra Bland, a routine traffic stop. In 2015, a 28-year-old African-American woman was pulled over by a white police officer in Texas for a broken taillight. During the traffic stop, Bland became agitated and was arrested by the officer after she failed to put her cigarette out when asked. She was then taken to jail, where she was found dead 3 days later by apparent suicide. Many believe that she was actually murdered by the police, as her death was ruled as a probable suicide. There was no physical evidence that Bland had taken her own life, and the circumstances surrounding her death were highly suspicious. The release of the footage from the police car camera only added fuel to the fire, showing Bland being repeatedly demeaned and threatened by the officer during the traffic stop. While the official investigation concluded that Bland's death was a suicide, many people remain convinced that she was actually murdered by the police. This case highlights the racial bias that exists within the criminal justice system and the need for greater accountability and transparency from law enforcement officers. Number 8. Emmett Till, unjustly accused. In 1955, a 14-year-old African-American boy was accused of whistling at a white woman in a grocery store in Mississippi. Till's alleged offense was met with an extreme response from the woman's husband and brother, who kidnapped, tortured, and killed him. Despite overwhelming evidence of their guilt, the murderers were acquitted by an all-white jury in a trial that lasted only an hour. This case of racial injustice sparked outrage across the United States and helped to galvanize the civil rights movement. Till's mother, Mamie Till Moselle, insisted on an open casket funeral so that the world could see the brutality of her son's murder. This graphic display of violence and racism shocked the nation and helped to bring about significant changes in the fight for civil rights. Number 7. The Central Park Five. In 1989, 5 young men were falsely accused of raping a white woman in Central Park. The men, who were all African American and Hispanic, were coerced into confessing to the crime through a combination of deception, intimidation, and outright mentorship. Despite the fact that DNA evidence later proved their innocence, the men were convicted and served between 5 and 13 years in prison. After their release, they were exonerated and the real perpetrator was identified through DNA testing. This case is a prime example of racial profiling and the dangers of assuming guilt based on stereotypes and preconceived notions. The wrongful conviction and imprisonment of the Central Park Five serves as a reminder of the importance of due process and the need for law enforcement officials to be held accountable for their actions. And number 6, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. Between 1932 and 1974, the U.S. Public Health Service conducted a study on African American men in Tuskegee, Alabama. The men were told that they were being treated for free for various health issues. But in reality, they were being denied treatment for syphilis in order to observe the effects of the disease. This unethical experiment resulted in the deaths of many of the men and the spread of syphilis to their families. The Tuskegee Airmen syphilis experiment is a dark chapter in the history of medical research. and a stark reminder of the importance of informed consent and the protection of human rights. These are just a few examples of the many instances of racism that continue to plague our justice system. From wrongful convictions to police brutality, African Americans continue to be disproportionately targeted and mistreated by law enforcement and the courts. It's important to remember these stories and to continue fighting for a more just and equitable society for all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and share. We would also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.